Hey everyone, Dr. Stacy here. I wanted to talk to you today about self-care, something that's extremely important for all of us, but yet not many of us really do our own self-care. Or if we do, it's very erratic. It's not something that that we prioritize. And I myself, I go through waves of taking care of myself, not taking care, being mom, being a wife, being a teacher, being a daughter, and putting everyone else before me. Recently, I guess definitely the last year, I've made enormous strides on catching myself and seeing where I'm falling short in my self-care and making it more of a priority. Now, this is a muscle that needs to be exercised. It's not something that we automatically just flip a switch and say, all right, it's time for self-care. Everything else has to stop, and this is what I'm doing now. It doesn't really work that way. So like any other muscle, it should be exercised slowly, stretched first, right? We got to stretch before we just dive into any kind of major athleticism of any kind. I know my younger daughter's always trying to see how high she can kick her leg, and my other daughter's going, you have to stretch first. So it's interesting, but the point is we do have to stretch the muscle. We have to get used to exercising the muscle of self-care. And then you have to, depending on what season we are in our life or what season we are in the year even, it depends on how our self-care is going to look. For example, wintertime, I don't know, for my life at least, things are a little slower. I try not to I'm especially after the holidays, I'm not so busy all the time. So my self-care can look a little bit different. Also during the winter months, we're tired, right? The sun goes down earlier. It's a lot of dark hours, and our body wants to hibernate just like those bears. We want to curl up into our beds early. We want to sit on the couch a little bit earlier. We want our days just to end a little earlier. So our self-care is going to have to morph with that. Also, in the summer, we're going constantly. It's funny because I was a teacher for many, many years, and although I didn't work during the summer as a teacher, my summer seemed to be more, I don't want to say more, sometimes more busy, but more haphazard because I wasn't in a routine. So depending on where we are in our life or our season, when my kids were really little, I think when my kids were really little, I had more self-care than as they got older, more consistency with my self-care. And I think part of that was they're on such a routine that it enabled me to be on more of a routine, or I allowed myself to be on more of a routine because it was easier. But you have to see what works for you. Are you a morning person? Is self-care something you want to do in the morning? Or is it something you want to focus on in the afternoon, maybe right after work, or maybe before bed? You have to see which works best for you. And what works for one person is definitely not going to be the exact same for another. That leads us to type of self-care. What type of self-care is best for you? I am hoping at the bare minimum that we look at our self-care as our physical health. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you getting enough activity? And what about the food you're eating? A wise woman once told me, one of my mentors told me, broke it down this way to not just myself, but to a bunch of us. There's 3 things you have to be concerned about, and it's the air you're breathing, the water you're drinking, and the food you're consuming. So are you being aware of what you're putting into your body? This could be a very simple, the products you're using. Are the products you're using for your body good for you? Are they healthy? I know it took me a while to pinpoint a healthy deodorant, one that didn't have aluminum, that I was comfortable with, and that I knew was beneficial or non-toxic to my body. Once I ironed that out, that was a great thing to establish. And you can't do this all at once. You can't look at your toothpaste, your deodorant, I don't wear makeup, but you could wear makeup. And some people wear makeup or don't wear makeup on a daily basis, but I have a theater family, so even my husband has to put on makeup for shows. And be mindful of what that is. Even if you're doing it once in a while, you still want to make sure you have the products that are good for you. Air. I'm going to sneeze. Oh my goodness. I apologize. Keeping it real. I don't know what that was. Something just tickled my nose. But air quality, we want to make sure that we're breathing in things that are good for us, right? Having plenty of plants around, diffusing. I'm an essential oil girl. I love my essential oils. I love them for the beautiful fragrances they have, and I love them for the medicinal purposes that they provide myself and my family. But even just having the beautiful, uplifting smell of lemon in the air is wonderful, and you're doing so many good things for your body, but it's invigorating. It smells good, and it makes happy. Lemon also disinfects things, so it's disinfecting the air as well. So I lost my train of thought. So self-care is your air around you, and the air also contains what cleaners are you using? What things are in your home, in your environment? I had to run an errand the other day, and I went into the store, and from the moment I walked in, I'm like, ooh, the air is not great. And it was just so it made me cough, and I just kept coughing the whole time I was there. And I was a little slow in the uptake. I had to be there for something. But I tried to get out of there as soon as I can. And after I went out there, I have a protocol I did for myself to just work on my lungs a little bit. I flushed my lungs. I do energy medicine, as most of you know. And through the tools I have, I was able to flush out my lungs, and I felt so much better right away. And I know not everyone has those tools yet, but I'm happy to help you with those as well. But just paying attention to our environment. Cleaners, a long time ago got rid of a lot of the toxic cleaners that I thought were good because they were killing germs. What were they killing besides germs were my lungs, my family's lungs. It wasn't healthy. It was counterproductive, honestly. So we found more natural cleaners that we were happy with. Water, drinking clean water versus like bad things for you that's filled with lots of sugar. Sodas and heavy juices. There's good juices and there's not so good juices. So thinking about the liquids that go into your body. Foods, lots of greens, fruits, vegetables, whole foods. I myself am doing a whole food living plan right now. And so what that means is anything that's not natural, I don't eat. So it was a little bit of a challenge at first. I gave up my beloved pasta. I definitely a carb girl. But I switched over to potatoes, and I'm loving my potatoes. I love sweet potatoes. My family doesn't like sweet potatoes. I'm the only one that does, but it's like candy to me. I cut them in little strips, like almost like fries, or I like a bigger dice, and just bake them, and they get a little caramelized, and I love them. I could just eat them until there's no tomorrow. So we have got our food. You can go as far as changing clothing. I haven't done that yet, to be honest with you, but that's somewhere I'm heading, is changing my clothing so that because there's chemicals and stuff in clothing, but I do take very specific care of what detergent I'm using. So I know that's completely non-toxic when I'm using there. What else? So those are general things we can do for self-care. You also need self-care of your mind. Your mind needs some love too, right? Meditation. And some people say, well, Stacey, I don't know how to meditate. That's okay. Not everyone knows how to meditate. Again, that's something we can work on, and I can teach you, we can learn and grow together with. But I always tell people, start at the basics. If you don't know how to meditate, you do know how to breathe. I start with counting breaths. So I go in, hold, out. My out breath's usually a little longer than my in breath, but I try and keep them about the same. So for me, it's anywhere from 4 to 6 seconds or counts. Breathing in and breathing out. I often do a hold for half of that, but sometimes I'm not really counting, but I just do a slow breath, and that would look like and just do it nice and slow like that. Counting, I suggest for people that have a hard time focusing their mind. The brain's so beautiful and so intelligent and so complex, but it can only do one thing at a time. So if you're thinking, it can only think about one thing at a time. So if you're thinking of counting, then the other activities that you have to do are not galloping through your mind, or is much less chance of it anyway. So that's something I suggest to start with meditation, is just doing counting breaths. Or you can even go, I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out. You can do that in your mind. Mantra breathing is also fantastic. Think about something that you're working on for yourself. I make time for my own self-care, and that could be your mantra. Breathe in, I make time for my own self-care. That's how that would look, okay? So there's self-care like that. Activity. If you're not a CrossFit person, if you're not a marathon runner, if you're not a weight trainer, you can walk, build up, choose one thing to work on. My husband happens to be a personal trainer, and I just started a couple weeks ago really wanting to change some habits, and one of them is putting exercise into my life. So I walk either outside or on a treadmill for 35 minutes or more a day. I actually have this guilty pleasure. I like listening to books on tape. I call them tape. They're on my phone, so it's downloadable books, I guess is the right way to say it. I still call them books on tape. Most people don't correct me. But anyway, so as I'm walking, I'm listening to my book, and it's wonderful. I love doing it, and the time goes so fast, and I'm making time for two things. One that I really, really want to do, and the other that I know is good for me and I want to do for that reason. But my husband's a personal trainer, and he started me on some exercises in addition to build muscle, in addition to walking, which is cardiovascular. And he's going super duper slow with me. I haven't done it. I'm a mom of 5, and I haven't exercised since, goodness, I think it has to be at least 12, if not longer, years ago, or if not longer, that I actually really tried to stay in a consistent program. So he's going slow. We're doing slow reps, taking breaks in between, but I'm still building muscle. I'm still building my confidence, and I'm still building the faith in myself that I care enough about me to do this self-care. And it's layers, guys. You can't throw everything in at once. It's small things. You pick one area you want to start in, feel comfortable, and then you add something else. So you can look at your air first. And then once you're comfortable where that is, then you go to another area. It doesn't have to be hard and overwhelming. Take it as you can and keep track of it. See what you're doing. And then look how far you've come and how many changes you've made if that's what you desire. Self-care can be going out with a friend, having fun, doing something for yourself. Um, as long as it's within your means and not something that would cause extra stress, buy yourself something. Gosh, I bought myself a cup, a mug that I just thought was the cutest mug, and it just made me so happy every time I looked at it. So I bought it. It was $5. It's not like I spent $5,000 on this crystal that I want. I really want one of those big amethyst geodes. But I $5,000 for me is not what I'm willing to spend on that right now. So that would stress me out. But this $5 cup made me so incredibly happy. I bought something else recently too. Oh, a journal, not a journal, my new calendar for the next upcoming year. It was all classic Disney movies. And I smiled and I giggled when I picked it up. So my husband says to me, he's like, well, why don't you need one anyway. Why don't you just get it? So little things. It doesn't have to be big, enormous actions to give yourself self-care. Taking the time to do something that you want for yourself, right? An accomplishment, working towards a goal for yourself. For me, last year was my big year. Well, actually, yeah, for the past 14 months was my big year. I know it's a little more than a year, but I wanted to become a doctor. So I did. I have my doctorate in metaphysics, and I am over the moon proud of myself and just loving it, loving the tools I learned, loving the way I can help people, and just proud of myself for accomplishing something that I've always wanted to do. The other was writing a book. I published my first book. I am going to talk about that another day, but I did that. It's another huge it's been on my bucket list for years and years and years, and I finally took the time to do it. That's self-care also. Feeding yourself, feeding your mind, feeding your heart, feeding your soul, in addition to feeding your body. These are all wonderful things for self-care. Sometimes self-care is, like I said, I think I said this earlier though, but it's important to reiterate. Sometimes self-care is knowing when you need a break and taking a break before you crash. I did have an issue with this one for years, that I would go, and not even realize how tired and exhausted I was until I had a day off. And it would happen every single day off. I'd end up with a migraine or a cold. Did I really get sick? Did I really have this migraine? Yeah, I did. But my body was telling me, my ego self, you need to rest. And if you're not going to allow yourself to rest, then we're going to make you. And so it's important to know when we need rest before our body doesn't give a choice, right? Okay, so self-care is a beautiful, beautiful tool for our overall wellness, body, mind, and spirit. And it's something that you have to develop your own relationship with. What do you want for yourself? How is this going to fit into your life best? But make the time for it to fit in. Find a way that you can have your self-care with ease in your life. You don't want to stress out about giving yourself self-care. That's counterproductive. But you deserve self-care. You're worth it. And hopefully you allow yourself to enjoy it as well. That's kind of the most important aspect. So comment down below if you have any questions. You're always welcome to email me if you have any specific questions or topics that you want us to talk about on here. And I think that's it for today. Thank you for dealing with my little sneezing. As I promised, I will always be real, will always be authentic, and always be me. Thank you for joining me today. I look forward to talking with you again next week with much love from me to you. Namaste.